Happy Valentine's Day. It's February the 14th. And who needs a bunch of red roses when we've got these treasures right outside our back door? This video is all about winter flowering shrubs, winter, spring. And this Daphne, it's Daphne Jacqueline Postill, has been flowering outside my back door for a good month now. And you look, it's got masses and masses of new buds to come. And I think this is the most fabulous shrub. It's about 2 meters high. It's probably been in about 3 or 4 years. It does grow quite fast. And I've used it on one job against a wall, a west-facing wall, but it could have been another orientation. I think it would pretty much do on any. And then it goes up even higher. And the thing about shrubs flowering at this time of year is you want to put them in a slightly sheltered site because it does get windy and it can just blow the scent away from you. But if you put it in a nice sheltered site, then it actually lingers around, and this scent even goes in through our keyhole into the kitchen. The other thing is put them where you're going to notice them. There's no point in putting them somewhere that you're never going to see them, but where you really notice them. So this is probably one of my top 15 or whatever winter, spring flowering shrubs. I've also got Daphne odora marginata, which is smaller, grows to about 1 meter, and it's just coming into flower now. It comes in later than this guy here. And then I've also got the native Daphne laureola, which I took from cuttings and from seeds, and that is extraordinary. When you look at it, it looks so exotic, it doesn't really look native, but again, it's got these very fragrant, beautiful flowers. I'll show you the cuttings in a minute. At this time of year, mid-February, you really need to come out in the garden. There's lots that you need to get going with. And so that's why, one of the reasons that I think these winter, spring flowering shrubs are really good, because they give you something to go and look at and enjoy. So don't be mean on them. Find a great place for them and grow a lovely range of them. Come and see my next one. Hellebores intermedia Arnold Thomas. Now the witch hazels, I've wanted to grow for ages, but they do love an acid soil. So I put them here. This is a north wall, and it's along my path to the greenhouse. So I travel it every day, and it's lovely that I see the signs of spring coming. Now I only planted this one last year. It's quite a large shrub, and I'm putting a lot of the coffee granules mixed with bark and things around it to try and acidify the soil. But with all plants, they found that after they've been in a few years, the actual exudate around the root hairs, i.e. the stuff that the root hairs excrete, make that zone immediately around the root hairs a wee bit more acid than the surrounding soil. So I'm hoping as they get established, and I'll keep adding things, maybe a bit of sulphur, just to keep the soil quite acid, I'm hoping that these beauties will live and grow to a nice size with me. The next shrub is this guy next door. Now this one is Lonicera, it's Fragrantissima, and it's a sort of semi-evergreenish type shrub. I would say it's going over now. It has been in flower for some time, a good month, I would say, probably started beginning of January, end of Christmas. And I took this cutting from a client's garden, from Princess Galitzin's garden that I was working on with her. And that must have been about 32 years ago. So it's not a massive plant. You see, it's sort of grown up to about 1 meter. It's probably been drawn up because it's by the north wall. It's not the tidiest member of the plant family, really, but I like it. It's fun. This is quite a natural bit. And so I quite like the fact that it is a wee bit ungainly. And boy, does it smell. Now with all these plants, we often get questions on Gardeners' Question Time saying I planted or whatever and they said it was fragrant, but it's not. But when you put in a tiny little shrub that's about this big and it's got maybe 5 flowers on it, it's not going to be packing the punch with the scent. But when they get bigger, and this has probably got 300 flowers on it, it really wafts out. So don't be impatient. If you find you're a little bit disappointed initially, wait, a few years down the line, you'll be knocked out by the scent. The other, of course, nice thing about some of these winter flowering shrubs is that the bumblebees love them, or the bees love them. And we do have bees coming out when they come out of their hive or their nest, just to clean themselves up and do some excreting and things like that. And so it's great that they've got some of these lovely flowers to enjoy the pollen and nectar from. Now this, you will not be knocked out by its appearance or its flowers at this point. And this is one shrub I've been thinking about buying for some time, and then I thought, yeah, perhaps I should. And this is the Wintersweet, Chimonanthus praecox. And it will shortly, I hope, that it's a little bit later than the others flower, burst into these magnificent blooms of white flowers. So it is one worth getting. I wouldn't put it in the prime position of the garden. I'll put it in a sheltered position so the blooms last for longer, and I'll put it somewhere where I walk by regularly. So that's one to think about. This is Sarcococca confusa. Now the flowers are not extravagant flamboyant jobs. They're really quite tiny wee, but they are lovely because they smell so divine. They really do knock out the perfume, and I love it. Evergreen shrub. I put it by this gateway where I walk by regularly, and this definitely took a few years before I had enough mass with lots of flowers so the scent really hit you. Now this goes up to about 2 meters high, and it's great in shade. I've got it here under the woodland, and then I've got its mate here, which is Sarcococca humilis, and this one is much lower growing. I'm going to keep it as a dwarf hedge. It's humilis. It probably would go up to a good metre or so, and as you can see, it's only just gone in a year or two ago, and it is starting to flower now. And the lovely thing about this is obviously you'll cut it after flowering so that you will always have the flowers. But it's a sort of informal-ish hedge. You could keep it much neater, and as it grows and thickened up, I will get it neater than this. But I think it's lovely to walk up a path lined with a low fragrant plant like that. I just think it's wonderful. And that is the point. Fragrance, when the fragrance is up at nose level, obviously it hits you much more than when it's down at that level. Come and look at see some new plants I've got in the greenhouse. Now these flowers, these plants, these are coronillas, and this is Coronilla valentina, very appropriate today, subspecies glauca citrina. And you see this one is just the ordinary glauca, and you see quite different yellow colours. Now I took these from cuttings in the pig restaurant. I didn't ask permission, very naughty, but it was a huge bush. They do grow up to about 1 metre and spread, 1.5 metres, something like that. They say best in sunny positions, but I seem to remember it was growing fairly near a tree, so it's quite shady. But I like this one particular. I much prefer this paley yellow than this colour. But I like them because they've got this lovely glaucous foliage, and they flower from sort of December to Marchish, this lovely sort of pea-like flower. So I'm going to put them in the border near that Wintersweet, and I think that'll be quite nice. So I'm going to have mainly winter flowering plants there to pull me back through. And just behind them, these mates, these are the little Iris reticulata, Harmony. Beautiful blue flower, really nice, just going over now. But they're nice to have some little bulbs that you can pop on a table or near your back door, just to brighten up these dull late winter, early spring days. Come and see my next treasures. People are always asking for evergreen climbers, and this clematis armandii is one of the best. They say put it on a south-facing wall. This is in heavy shade here, but it still flowers like mad. And you can see it's just about to burst into these beautiful white, palish pink, lovely flowers. Now this just covered this whole wall. It got way too much, so I had to hack it back heavily. But I do like it. I think it's a wonderful plant. And it seems I've grown it in north, south, east, west positions. And whatever the books say, I think it's a great, useful climber, but you will need to keep it in check at times. If you've got a site that requires that, then that is definitely the beast for you. I think one of the best plants for dry shade is this. It's Helleborus hybridus. It's the Lenten rose. These are really beautiful, useful plants for dry shade. So these, I planted a few plants and they just spread slowly, and they cover the ground with their beautiful evergreen foliage most of the year, and then they pop up and they seed all different colours. So sometimes I get white, sometimes I get very dark purple, sometimes pink. It's lovely, I think, that variation. It gives you that very natural look. Some people say you should take off the leaves as they get slightly mouldy, they get attacked by a fungus. To be honest, I don't really bother because we're on very dry soil. It doesn't hurt them hugely, and I think having a bit of leaf with chlorophyll is better than having none. And I did speak to someone who had the national collection of them, and he said if you're on dry soil, don't worry, and if they look unsightly, maybe take them off, but just leave them. Don't get too paranoid about it. Anyway, I think these are a winner if you've got dry shade and you like a bit of winter colour. But my favourite hellebore is elsewhere. I'll show you that. So one of my favourite hellebores is this, Helleborus cross sternii. Now you can see it's the end of winter, but this beauty has been flowering for months, I think, months and months. It just goes on and on and on. And then I have to say it looks a bit when it's flowered. So I just cut off the flowering stalks to the basal clump of leaves that you leave. And they grow, always when you cut off the flowers, when they're over, of anything, whether it's just a soldier and sailor or hustle or anything, the leaves immediately perk up and look much better. It's like they're not having to put all their energy into the flower and make seed, and they put it into the foliage. So as soon as you do that, you think, oh, at the time, but then a few weeks and the leaves look so good and pristine and new as it bolts into growth. So Helleborus cross sternii, this will do shade, the seeds around in sunny gravel. It's the plant that will succeed where many others won't, and I love it, but you rarely see it for sale. I don't know why. So for my final one, come and have a look at this native plant. I love hazel. Okay, it's a lovely native woodland shrub, and it grows all along the woodland edge here. I planted it, I don't know when, maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. But these lovely hazels, I think, look so divine, and then obviously you get the beautiful nuts. But one thing, if we use a lot of hazel sticks here for training roses and vegetables and everything up. And if you're going to cut your sticks, you need to cut them now before they get into growth proper. Because if you cut the hazel sticks now, as opposed to when they're in leaf, those sticks will last much, much longer. So that's a job for the weekend. I must go and collect a lot of my sticks. So I'm just going to show you my snowdrops that I moved, and then we're done. I've just been planting this fringe, woodland edge fringe down by my walkway, and I just lifted loads of snowdrops that had been seeding and growing in bits that I didn't necessarily notice them, and so I moved them when they're on the point of flower. You're never meant to do things like that, but I'm sure they'll grow. I'll check that they've got enough water, and I just think they look lovely running down here. And I planted a load of luzula, the native woodland grass, as well, and we'll put foxgloves and all sorts. Lovely little spring touch, and I see some primroses I've planted a seeding around too. So I hope you enjoy your winter flowering plants. It is the first taste of spring, and on this Valentine's Day, what could be nicer?